everybody, and welcome to the Awakencast. I'm your host, Jeremy. And on today's episode, we're going to be talking all about how to be a player when playing Dungeons & Dragons. Now, let me ask you this. Have you ever been really confused by the rules of D&D? And you don't know where to start when building your character? Or are you someone who is curious about Dungeons & Dragons, but don't know where to start? If so, you're in the right place. Today, I'm going to be talking all about the basics that you need to know about Dungeons & Dragons. So grab your character sheets and settle in, because this episode is all about making every session a legendary adventure. Hello and welcome to episode 5, The Hero's Journey, starting your D&D adventure. I know there are some listeners here who don't know much about Dungeons & Dragons. You're welcome here. And I want to say, if you're someone who has not played D&D and is curious about it, or you know someone who just consistently talks about it, and you might be a little bit annoyed, so you come here to find out information, I just want to say a very huge thank you and welcome. I'm really happy that you're here. I hope this helps you understand more about what Dungeons & Dragons is all about and why it's such a cherished hobby. Imagine stepping into a world where dragons soar above ancient castles, where magic crackles in the air, and where heroes are forged through epic quests. Picture the sun setting behind the towering spires of a long-forgotten kingdom, the roar of a dragon echoing through the mountains, and the shimmering glow of an arcane energy as the wizard casts his powerful spell. Now you can open your eyes. This is the world of Dungeons & Dragons, a realm limited only by your imagination. Today, I'm going to help you dive into the world of D&D with confidence and creativity as a player. Whether you're starting out or looking to sharpen your skills, this episode is all about making your Dungeons & Dragons experience amazing. I'll go over everything you need to know to become an awesome player that your Dungeon Master will love you for. Seriously. From learning the basic rules and also a little bit about how to create your character. I'll share tips to even keep you engaged and focused during your sessions, offer advice for tackling common challenges, and give you ideas to make your characters unforgettable. So, why is D&D so special? Well, it brings people together like no other game. When you sit around a table with your friends, you share laughs, you solve puzzles, and you face epic battles side by side with your friends around the table. You'll experience the joy of rolling a natural and the stress of rolling a natural 1. And, well, the heartbreak of maybe losing a beloved character or seeing one of your friends' characters die. But most importantly, you'll create memories that will last long after the game is over. Now that you have an idea of what Dungeons & Dragons is, let's start with the basics. The rules of the game. Now, it's not an exciting topic, but it is essential to learning what D&D is. So we'll start here. It starts with character creation. This is the most important part about D&D. So, where do you start? So the start of character creation, you can either go with a race or a class to choose first. Let's do this all over again. Now that you have an idea of what Dungeons & Dragons is, let's start with the basics. The rules of the game. So, we'll start here. First and foremost, character creation. This is the most important part about D&D. Without a character, can't really play. So, to start creating your character, you can either choose your race or your class first to get some ideas of what you want to make your character be. So with a race, you can choose a race like an elf, dwarf, human, maybe a tiefling, and or maybe a monster race. There are numerous races in Dungeons and Dragons. Next, your class. You can pick a class like fighter, wizard, or rogue. Each one determines your skills and abilities as you play the game. So if you want to be that magic user, or you want to fight with swords or maybe your fists. Next, after you've chosen both of those, next is your background. You select a background like soldier or sage to add flavor to your character's story. So the background is very important for your character to create that backstory, to create that depth, and have them be part of this world. Next is your. All right, so next with building your character, there are ability scores. Your character has 6 main. The next thing to build your character is to do your ability scores. These are what make your character function. They are essentially how strong they are or how fast they move. Your character has 6 main stats: strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. Strength measures the physical power and athleticism your character has. Your dexterity reflects their agility, balance, and reflexes. Their constitution indicates their endurance, their health, and stamina. Intelligence assesses reasoning, memory, and knowledge. Wisdom represents perception, insight, and willpower. And some people's favorite, charisma. It gauges the charm, the influence, the leadership, how good looking they are. These scores influence the character's abilities, skills, and effectiveness in various tasks and combat situations. They range from 1 to 20 for most characters, with higher numbers indicating greater ability. So, now that you have your ability scores, you've chosen your race, your background, and your class, you get to now choose your equipment. There are starting equipment, or you can buy your equipment. Once your character is built, this is where the game comes alive. D&D also revolves around this one amazing mechanic: rolling dice. Like this. This is a D20, a 20-sided die. D&D uses a set of polyhedral dice to roll to see if you succeed at your skill checks, to hit an enemy, and much more. With a brief description of what the dice do, next is where you're going to probably be rolling most of your dice. Combat. Combat is going to be the most chunky, rule-heavy part, so if you feel confused, if you feel overwhelmed during combat, it's normal. It's okay. Have those mistakes and just go through the motions and ask experienced players and your dungeon master at the table to help explain rules to you if you're confused about combat. So in combat, I want to break down everything in as simple and easily digestible parts for you. First, the dungeon master is going to call for initiative. This is where you're going to roll your d20 and add your initiative. This is what helps the DM know who is going to go first in the initiative order. Now, for your character, you have 4 things that you can do during your turn. You can do movement, actions, bonus actions, and reactions. First, movement. Your character has an assigned movement speed. With that, you can move around tactfully through the dungeon. You can use it to move around, use tactics to fight the enemies, or even retreat. Then there is your action. On your turn, you can attack with a weapon, with a ranged weapon, or cast a spell. These are going to be your main uses of this is going to be the main uses of your action, but there is a bit more to your action. But for the basics, it'll be attack or cast a spell, really. Then the bonus action and reactions. These are extra moves that you can take under certain conditions. Like with a rogue, they have uncanny dodge, which when they get attacked, they take half damage when an enemy attacks them. So now that I've gone through the basics of combat, your character is probably hurt. They need to rest. So there is short rests and long rests. If you're in a dungeon, you're probably going to be taking lots of short rests. These take about an hour to regain some health, maybe some spell slots if you're a warlock, and some abilities if you use them. Then there is a long rest. This will usually happen outside of dungeon crawls. Very rare. So a long rest is when your character gets a full night's sleep to fully heal and refresh their spell slots. It's almost as if they are being rejuvenized and they feel better the next day. And lastly, this one is minor, but it will happen. There are conditions. Various conditions, like being blinded or frightened, can affect your character in different ways throughout D&D, outside combat and inside of combat. There are a lot of them, so this is not something for you to really memorize. Your dungeon master will walk you through each of these conditions for you. Now, so those are the basic rules of D&D. I know this may seem like a lot, but by grasping these basic rules, you'll lay the foundations for playing D&D. There are more rules than what I have covered here, but this is a solid starting point if you're confused. I'll dedicate an entire episode to guide new players in creating their first or even fifth character. Trust me, you won't want to miss it. This episode will be packed with tips, tricks, and some advice to make your character truly come to life. So make sure you stay tuned and keep an eye out for that episode. All right, now we're just going to shift some gears here and talk about how to stay focused and engaged during your D&D sessions. Because it's an immersive story the Dungeon Master is creating for everyone at the table. So, whether you're a new player or a seasoned veteran, maintaining concentration at the table can sometimes be challenging, especially if you have ADHD. Trust me, I know. Here are a few strategies to help you stay in the game. You want to minimize as many distractions as possible. Make an effort to reduce distractions during play. Put away the phones and the smart devices. Avoid those side conversations. Though the brief ones are fine, put away your phones and other smart devices, even your laptops. Unless you need them absolutely, that's okay. Just make sure that you turn off anything that may cause to be a distraction. Also, avoid side conversations. Though they can be super fun, they do happen, but don't let it stop the game. Keep them brief and use them to just have fun and banter around the table. That's totally okay. Also, create a comfortable and dedicated gaming space. If you need a blanket, if you need something to keep you cold, warm, what have you, and engaged at the table, do it. The more immersive the environment, the easier it is to stay focused. Next, active participation. You want to stay engaged by actively participating in the game. Your dungeon master will love you for staying engaged And especially during combat, when it is your turn, you already know what to do. You can ask questions, interact with other characters, and take notes during gameplay. The more invested you are in the story, the more natural it will be to stay focused. If you're scared of speaking out, talk to your DM and work something out so you and the other people at the table can share their thoughts and questions they may have during the game. Now, take breaks. This depends all about how long your game is. Usually, mine are about roughly 2 hours, but some people can do marathons, which are 8 hours plus. Maybe it's 2 days long. It happens. So don't forget to take short breaks. Talk to your DM if you need one. Ask others around if they need one. Grab a snack because those can help you recharge and return to the game with renewed energy, especially if you're playing a D&D marathon. Sometimes take those half-hour breaks. I would recommend, if you are playing longer sessions, every 4 hours of gameplay to have a 15 to 30-minute break. Have fun and alleviate yourself. No. During the break, talk to your friends about what their ideas. During the break, you can talk to your other fellow players and get to know what they're thinking about the game and maybe some ideas. I would recommend every 4 hours of gameplay to have about a 15 to 30-minute break. But it is okay if you have small breaks throughout your long game. That is totally okay. But unless everyone is invested and things are super intense in the game, because they will, sometimes there won't be times to take those breaks. That's okay. If you're invested in the game and things are getting super intense or just everybody's having fun, that's totally okay. You don't need those breaks. But for DMs who are listening, if things are really intense, you're in the middle of a boss fight, and you can tell that there might need a break, you can use these moments to create cliffhangers at the table. So then, when you have that break, you get to hear what the players are saying and maybe some ideas to add to the session. It's a great way to also create more camaraderie at the table and that, like, oh my goodness moment at the table. But anyway, back to the players. Now, rotating the spotlight. Make sure everybody at the table gets their chance to shine. As players, the DM will focus on you for a bit, maybe a whole session. But sometimes that spotlight might last a bit longer than others may like or that you like. And that's okay. As players, the DM may focus a bit on your character, but sometimes that spotlight can last a bit longer than others may like. So invite others into your spotlight so they can be invested with you. If you know there's a player who hasn't engaged, maybe just bring them into the game. That way, everyone at the table is having fun and not zoning out. Engage with the world. This one is important with your character. You want to work with your DM to create a character that will be immersed in this world. Immerse yourself in the game world by thinking about how your character will react to different situations. Role-playing and making in-character decisions can make the game more engaging and more fun. Write backstories with your dungeon master. Your character is a part of this world. The dungeon master wants them to have an impact in the story. So they want as much information about your character so they can use it to immerse your characters in the game. But as I say this, don't write a novel unless your DM says that's okay. A good amount to write for your character, if it's just bullet points or brainstorming, I would say no more than 5 pages. Even a little less than that, if you only have 1 page of bullet points, that's perfectly fine. Now, you with ADHD, have I got your attention? Good. This part's for us. So, you're at the table. You're losing focus. Bring your fidget toys. I know you have them. Bring them because they will help your focus. So, when you bring those fidget toys, the ones that don't make too many noises and just soothe you, bring those to the table. They can help you increase the focus. Even if it is building your dice towers. You know what? That's a fun way to have your focus on the table at the game. So, dice towers are highly recommended. But other fidget toys like a Rubik's Cube, do what you need to do. Visual aids. Okay, this one's very important. You ask your dungeon master about your need for visual aids, because for some people it's very hard to picture what exactly is going on in the game. It's a lot more helpful if you are online. So use visual aids like maps, character portraits, and maybe handouts that you create for your character so that you can be engaged at the table and know exactly what is going on. If it's combat, maybe having a timer or having the DM have a clicker or something to bring your focus to the table. Also, ask the DM to use music to make the game more immersive for you. The dungeon master and you should be, especially with visual aids, talk to your dungeon master and work on a way that can help you maintain your focus on the game. Now, this one, it's not for everybody. It's for a specific type of player. Note taking. This one is not really like an ADHD specific. It's more for an everybody, but note taking. For those of you who love notes, this one's for you. Keep a notebook or a smart device handy to jot down important details, reminders, and maybe character ideas that you want to expand on later in the games. This can help you stay organized and retain information. Bring highlighters, bring colorful tabs, maybe have sections in your journal for character, story, and other kind of things so that you can stay organized when you're trying to remember something from a previous session. But warning on this one, if you take notes on your phone or use some sort of software, be very careful not to get distracted with texting or other things that may take your focus away from the table. If you need accountability, talk to your dungeon master, talk to your other fellow players, and say, hey, if you see me scrolling on TikTok, maybe on Instagram, nudge me, get me back into my notes. All right. So then for those who just can't sit still for hours, I know it can be very tough to stay engaged at the table. You're sitting, your mind is wandering, you're feeling antsy, you need to get up. Don't hesitate to ask to get up, walk around, and pace around. Talk to everybody in session 0 if this is something that you need to help maintain your focus at the table. Because stretching and a quick walk around the room can help you reset and refocus. But if you are walking around, do not go behind the DM screen. Don't do some peekies and cheaties, okay? And last but not least, clear communication. This is the most important thing at the table. If there is no communication between you and the other players and the dungeon master, things can go awry. Things can get frustrating. This can make you lose that immersion that you so desperately want. If there is anything during play that you are having troubles with, create a system for the table so that the dungeon master and other players know to put a brief pause and address something that you're not liking or that you need at the table. Having these little tools at the table will help you with your engagement and staying at the table. So what techniques do you use to stay focused during your D&D sessions, especially if you have ADHD? I'm very curious, so share in the comments down below or join the Discord. I would love to know and chat to you more about how to stay focused. Finally, let's talk to those of you who are curious about playing D&D but feel anxious or don't know where to begin. First off, it is completely normal to feel this way. D&D can seem very overwhelming at first, especially during your first 3 to 5 sessions. But it is all about having fun and telling a story together. So here are some tips to get you started. First, find a welcoming group. Look for local game stores, online communities, or if you know friends who play D&D. If you have friends who play D&D, they want you at their table. A welcoming group can make a huge difference. A welcoming group can make a huge difference in enjoying your time playing D&D. Reddit is also a great resource for finding games. Be picky with what games you find because there can be some very toxic groups out there. There's also Roll20, a great place to find games if you live in a small town. Now that you have ideas of where to look for a game, start small, especially if you don't want to commit right away. If you're just curious, you just want to try it out, just start small. You don't need to dive into a huge campaign right away. Try a one-shot adventure or join a group's session 0 to gain an idea of what D&D is with that group. In the session 0, you create characters and also learn more about the basics of that table's rules. With one-shot adventures, they only take one session, so they're not a commitment, and they're a great way to see how exactly you will like D&D. But it can still be very overwhelming during a one-shot. I always think that it takes about 3 to 5 sessions for you to start getting a grasp on D&D. I know that's a lot, but if you stick it out, it is worth it. So maybe you found a group now. So use resources. There are plenty of beginner-friendly resources out there, from starter sets to online tutorials. These can help demystify the game and make it more approachable. Last, embrace the mistakes that you make at the table. Everyone makes mistakes. I make mistakes. I have been a dungeon master for 8 years. We learn from those mistakes. Especially when you're learning, don't worry as much. If you are thinking about all these rules, don't worry. You're going to learn them through those mistakes. So don't worry about getting everything right. Focus on enjoying the experience and learning as you go. Don't worry about getting everything right. Focus on enjoying the experience and learning as you go. Set those expectations appropriately that you're new, you're not going to know everything, and that perfectionist inside of you, try to let it go. I know it can be hard, but once you make those mistakes, it's fine. Everybody will be able to relate to your mistakes. So, what are the biggest concerns or questions you have about starting your D&D journey? Please share. I would love to talk about So please share. I would love to talk to you about starting, even if even if it is personally messaging me on Discord, Instagram, or whatever social media. I would love to help and talk with you about them. And that wraps up our journey into D&D today. I've covered everything from creating your first character to understanding the basic core rules. Now, armed with these basics, you're ready to dive into unforgettable adventures with your friends. Remember, stay engaged by actively participating and minimizing distractions at the table. D&D is all about creating amazing stories together. So, whether you're a seasoned adventurer or just starting out, the magic of D&D awaits. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Awakencast. That wraps up episode 5, The Hero's Journey, starting your D&D adventure. Whether you're a seasoned player or curious about the world of Dungeons & Dragons, I hope this episode has inspired you to dive in and start your own epic quests. Remember, D&D is all about imagination, camaraderie, and creating unforgettable stories together. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Awakencast. If you enjoyed our chat, don't forget to follow us on Instagram and Threads at the Awakencast for updates and behind-the-scenes fun. If you want to dive deeper and connect with fellow adventurers, you absolutely don't want to miss joining our amazing Discord community. It is where the real magic happens. I'm your host, Jeremy, reminding you to stay curious, stay kind, and keep being awesome. Until next time, happy adventuring.